See, I even wonder if Frank's getting on. I didn't talk to him today. I probably should have, huh? Oh well, a little late. Uh, while we're waiting for Lou and Frank, I just wanted to take a moment and thank everybody for joining us. It's you guys really don't know how much it means to us that you're here and you're watching and maybe talking about us or maybe just browsing through and there's something pops up that catches your attention and you decide to stick around. If you like what you see, boy, I sure hope you guys stay because uh it really does mean the world to us that you're doing this. uh and it looks like, let's see what we got here. There he is. There's Lou.
Yeah, what a popped right in this morning again in the other meeting.
Well, all I can tell you, do you reboot your machine between, like, from that other meeting to the time you get on here?
No, I don't.
Uh just like maybe next week, why don't you give that a shot and see if that changes anything for you?
Yeah, maybe.
It is a Windows machine, so it is possible that you need to just kind of reset everything. And if it is working, then we know where we can go from there. If you do it for, like, I don't know, a couple days next week and you're popping on with no problem, okay, then we kind of know where the hang up is and we can get that thing resolved.
Okay, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So,
Hi, Frank.
Hey, Patsy. Hey, Lou. How you guys doing?
hey, Frank. Oh, and just as a start, have you tried La Mange yet?
Is it a restaurant?
Yeah, little
Oh yeah,
restaurant on the south side.
The pizza.
It's actually right next to our building where I work.
I had the pizza at your house that time.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
Pretty good. Yeah.
I had the brick oven tonight, and their pastries are excellent.
Nice.
Yeah, there's nothing bad about, except for the service is a little shaky, but there's nothing bad about their food. It's tremendous. During Lent, they had a shrimp po' boy that you'd have sold a kidney for.
Really?
Yeah, it was really good.
Nice.
It was really. I hope they do it again next year because it was really good. And believe it or not, I know it's going to sound weird, but their pierogi pizza is outstanding.
I looked at that.
It's outstanding. Whenever I get it, obviously I get it without the bacon on it, but it is absolutely outstanding. You'll like it. It's really good. Frank, what did we have? We had the just the plain with cheese. Oh, and we had the poor man's.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I got the brick oven, the thin one tonight with the banana hot peppers.
Yeah, that's worth your time, isn't it?
Yeah, it was good.
It's really good.
So
it's so hard. It's so hard to like watch your calories whenever that's literally right next to your building, right next to your office at lunchtime. That is so hard to do.
Listen, La Manja better give you a lunch certificate for this sponsorship you're throwing out there for them.
Well, I may have to tell them to sponsor our podcast.
Right.
Yeah, you should really. I will tell you this much. There were 2 times that they messed up our order. Okay, and whatever I tell you, they more than made up for it. I'm not kidding. They're legit. They're good folks.
Because mistakes happen, but if you treat your customer like that, then you're going to have a repeat customer, right?
Yeah. I mean, they really went above and beyond what any of us thought they were going to do to resolve it, and it was they're good folks over there.
Awesome.
Here, before we start, I don't know what we're starting with. I'm going to give a plug to our sponsor, FNX. This is their immune complex. In the age of coronavirus, this helps boost the immunity. And I was just looking at the ingredients. They got all kinds of natural stuff in there, including elderberry, ginseng, echinacea. And they have like 200 to 500% of the daily vitamins you need. So, you know what? And if you go use the code, is it Frank and Patsy,
Yep.
you get 15% off of all your purchases.
Yeah, funny you should do that. And I'll tell you what else is good for. This is what I use for Rocco, actually. Okay, you guys know my dog has trouble with his hips, and this is what he takes. Well, it's not his hips; it's his knees. But this collagen protein is what I've been giving him, and it's doing a fantastic job for him. So if it's good for GSD, it's good for you, right? It's collagen protein. It's going to be good for your joints.
Yeah.
But yeah, you use the code, you get 15% off. Makes us look real good, and their stuff is quality. So believe me, I wouldn't use. I'm over 50. I need all the help I can get when I work out. I wouldn't be wasting my time with something if it wasn't worth your time. Believe me. So good, we got that done. Lou, I'm glad you remembered it. Uh, did did anybody happen to watch Morning Joe this morning and the interview with Joe
I
Biden?
normally don't turn it on, but I did turn it on at 8 purposely just to watch Mika. And I'll tell you what, to me, talk about a double standard. I don't know whether she seemed strange
Angry.
or deliberate asking the questions to me. It didn't seem like her. And I don't know whether she was forced to keep asking the same one over and over. She did it off her own volition or what. But my God, why aren't they asking Trump? Or if they would have interrogated him like then, maybe we wouldn't be in the shit show we're in now.
I thought she came off very, very angry.
Yeah.
And really did not want to accept what I honestly thought was a very honest answer.
It's in front of the Matthews.
He the for everybody watching, if you didn't watch it, Joe Biden was on Morning Joe on MSNBC this morning, and he was among other things. They talked about a lot, but the main reason for him being there was to address the allegations that have been laid out by what the hell's her name?
Tara Reid.
Tara Reid. And Joe, I thought was Mika Brzezinski was interviewing him, and I thought that Joe was very at least very contrite in his answers. I thought he came across being very legit. I thought he came across, believe it or not, I thought he came across being very honest. But one of the things that stuck with on my crawl, and I mentioned in our Discord group, I said that this is the one time I watch Morning Joe, I'm reminded why I no longer watch it or why I can't watch it. Mika had asked Joe Biden about would he be willing to open up some files that he had, and it was something that had to do with the Senate.
The files at the University of Delaware.
Yes. And he said, well, that he really can't because those are personal files. And a lot of the information that's in there are things that would have been discussed in private with him and President Obama at the time, things with him and Putin. He mentioned Putin by name, things that he had discussed with other leaders and other people that really shouldn't be public information. Apparently that wasn't good enough for Mika. She continued to press him that he should be making these files available. And I guess the reason being was they were supposed to be made public a year ago or something like that. And for whatever reason, it was pushed back. Well, it doesn't take a genius to figure out they were pushed back because he decided to run for president. But whenever he addressed this issue and why he couldn't do it, he didn't blow her off. He didn't come up with some flimsy excuse. He didn't go attacking things. He said very simply, I can't do it. It's really not a wise thing to do. And these things have to be sorted out before we release anything. And she continued to push, well, why not just have somebody scan for her name or whatever it is? And he finally asked her, well, who's going to do that? Who's going to go through that? And I guess there's just a shit ton files there. Who's going to go through all this? And she was like, well, the university will. He's like, yeah, no. You got to be out of your mind to let somebody you don't know go through those files like that. I'm curious to get your opinions, but I got to tell you, I was really put off by the not only the tone of her questioning, but how she just did not let anything go, which when you go back and look at it again, looked like honest, legitimate answers.
You know, and the thing was, I lost count of how many times she asked that question. Pretty much the same way. Was it 5?
Oh, at least.
At least?
At least.
The answer he gave her, if there's anything that has to do with Tara Reade or any complaints in my time in the Senate, it would be in the Senate records, Senate archives, and my personnel files. So if you could find it in there, it will not be anywhere else. And she would not take that as an answer. He said, that is public record. You could go find it. You know, with freedom of information or whatever it might be from his time in the Senate. She would not take that for an answer. I was like,
he actually called out. He actually wants them to release everything. He's like, yeah, go do it. I want it out there. Go look. And that still wasn't good enough for her.
Yeah, so I have some thoughts. I've been jotting down notes as you guys have been talking. One, and I want to make sure that I, stay on topic, and that's why I put some notes down. You earlier on, you said, why not go after Trump this way? When he first started out, I think they did. I think that a lot of folks did, and at times they would get a little bit more serious with him. And then what happened was he would attack them. Okay, he would attack, and I'm not just limiting it to Morning Joe, but I think he taught. Was it her that he said she had blood coming out of her eyes and she had blood coming out of other parts of her body? So when she come after him like this, that was his response. Okay, and he does this with everybody. We've seen it till this day. Anybody that comes after him, like Paula Reed, similar last name, not spelled the same way, came after Trump recently, and he called her fake news. He started going after her personally as opposed to answering the questions. So there's a much different approach between Trump and Biden. Biden came off as very serious and willing to not attack the interviewer and not attack the accuser. That was what I thought was very important in his response. What Mika couldn't get through her head, and what was difficult for her to process, maybe intentionally, was the difference between women should be believed and heard versus we also have a responsibility to get to the truth. Okay, so what a lot of the folks said around the Me Too movement and the Kavanaugh thing was women are to be believed. And when they come out and they say something happened to them, you're supposed to at least give them the benefit of the doubt initially and listen to their story. And that part was what Biden kept trying to say. That's what I was talking about. And I believe that women do need to be heard out. They shouldn't be pushed to the side. Their story shouldn't be disregarded. We should listen to their story. And if there's proof that they're what they're telling you isn't true after they tell their story, then that proof should come out too. Okay. So what he's getting at is, I want this to be fully investigated. And he said that. And where she kept breaking down was, and in his backing of that is, go to the National Archives, because that's where personnel, double NEL records, personnel, not personnel records will be kept. National Archives will be housing the records of any complaints made against him when he was in the Senate. He said, go look there, because that's where they'll be if there's a complaint there. And then she followed that up and said, are you sure there will be no complaint there in the National Archives? And he said, to the best of my knowledge, the best of my recollection, I don't know of any complaints. But he's saying, go look for them. He's not trying to cover it up. Okay, go look for them. That's where they'll be housed. Okay, so he's already at step one of saying, let's hear the woman. Let's believe her. Let's go find out if there's any proof of this. Okay, now what she wants to do is take that to the nth degree and say, well, you should just believe him. That's it. You don't question him after that. That's it. Because that's what you said. And that's not what he said. Secondly, she wants to make it seem like he's trying to hide something because of his personal archives that are kept at the University of Delaware. And I'm sorry we didn't bring this up yesterday, but we ran out of time. I was going to talk about this a little bit. It's like when a president has their library, and that, Lyndon B. Johnson's is in Austin, Texas. Okay. You could go there and visit the presidential library in Austin and look through the records. Lyndon Johnson's dead. He's no longer in political office. He's no longer a public figure. So the University of Delaware is where they're housing the archives of Biden. And at some point they will be able to be searched by the public and people will be able to go look at them. But right now that's not the time. And there's not records specifically about his Senate time in terms of personnel records. Even if there are, those same records would then be housed at the National Archives. So she wanted to push on this issue because it's one of the favorites of conspiracy theories. If you can't turn this over, then you must be hiding something. Okay. So I have a little bit of sympathy for that, in the sense of saying, look, he should say, to the extent that the University of Delaware and the federal government would allow such a search, I won't stand in the way. Okay. Because I don't know that he has control over that. You see what I'm saying? Mm. So it makes it less questionable if he were to say, to the extent that, that's allowed under the current laws and rules, then I'm not going to stand in the way. But if that's not allowed under the current laws and rules, then we have to respect that. Okay. But be that as it may, I'm willing to have any other documents searched where they actually should be housed, which is in the National Archives. And that's where I think, again, Mika kept failing this idea of women should be heard and believed versus whatever they say is always absolute truth. Even if there's proof that that's not absolute truth, that we should just stop looking for any other proof that there's contradictory proof to that at all. And that's where the mix-up is, or that's where she was failing to allow herself to be brought to through that interview. And what I think the difference between Joe, and I'm just going to finish it back where I started, the difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump is Biden refused to get into an argument or refused to get into an angry, shout out with her about it. She wanted that. She was failing to get that out of him. She kept repeating her questions to see if she could frustrate him. And it wasn't frustrating him. It was frustrating her that he wasn't getting frustrated. And you could see it in her demeanor. You really could see it in her demeanor.
Oh, you could absolutely see it in her body language.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. It was terrible. Watching the way she responded or reacted to his responses was it was sad. I mean, it really was. The one thing that she kept bringing up a few times was the Kavanaugh hearing, right? And that whole dynamic. And and I'm just going to piggyback on what you said a little bit, Frank. She continued to try to equate this situation with the Kavanaugh situation, and the only response to that I have, I guess, is I can't think of a better term, was you look at everything that surrounded the Kavanaugh nomination, right? You look at everything that went from Dr. Ford and how quickly she was almost forced to come forward. I mean, it's almost where she made a mistake in letting somebody know that something happened, because it was very obvious that even during the Senate trials that she did not want to be there, right? She was scared. She was very timid. She wanted nothing to do with this whole thing. And it was very apparent that for the most part, she was pulled there kicking and screaming. You look at Kavanaugh's reaction to all of this. It's very obvious that he's hiding something. For fuck's sake, he started crying at a Senate hearing. Absolutely terrible behavior on his part. And you look at the people, and you look at the people around him, uh, the Republican senators specifically, and how they continue to push a narrative. And now you look at this Biden thing. You have somebody that's coming out of the blue with every intention of trying to get as much airtime as humanly possible. You have a person who's being accused who is saying, "Okay, let's get to the bottom of this. I will do my part, and here it is. This is the best I can do." He's not attacking anybody. He's not kicking and screaming. He's not breaking down crying during some investigation. He's throwing everything he possibly can out there and saying, "Okay, go ahead, go look. It's all right there. Let me know if you find something." And you're also seeing the Democrats around him, uh, Gillibrand, Nana, a couple others who aren't really going over the deep end or are just saying, "No, I believe Joe," and that was all you heard from them. So you're seeing the dynamic and of not only the accused but the supporting cast having a far different tone and acting in a far different manner than everybody involved in the Kavanaugh hearing. And if you can't see a difference there, uh, I don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah, because I mean, just going to compare the two things, the Republicans were so confident he was innocent, they didn't allow witnesses or investigations. You know, and that's what the bottom line was, where Joe's being open. Let it happen. Let's see. And another point Frank made on Trump being combative, I just saw something, I was reading it last night, where somebody had analyzing Trump, they see, and some of his background they knew about, they said he's dumb as a brick, except he's more street smart than most people. He took his lessons off Roy Cohn and Joe McCarthy. That's where you get that combativeness. You turn it on them and you just keep challenging them till they quit, even though you're lying your ass off.
Yeah. Yep, that's it. And that's what's so frustrating. And we want to see people not back down. And when we've gotten glimpses of that, we've celebrated it. But there's even people in the media, and I'll find the guy's name, but he made some valid points, but then he made some points that frustrate me too. He was talking about how the media shouldn't challenge Trump so much because they're the foil to Trump. They're basically they're the opposing party. They've become the opposing party, and Trump makes the villain out of them. It really doesn't have to be Trump versus Biden. It's Trump versus the media. That's how he won against Hillary, and that's how he won over his supporters, because a lot of people in America distrust the media. Look, we talk about the corporate media and our distrust of the corporate media. So he makes it about him versus them, and he's representing all of us by being against this big bad media. And this guy, I got to find his name, but he was talking about how they shouldn't challenge him to fights, and they shouldn't get into knockdown dragouts with him like Acosta does, because it just empowers him further in this battle. What they should do is back off, let him hang himself with his comments, and just let him talk, and then point out the things that he said later. But he said that he's been personally attacked by Trump at times, and that it's really unnerving to him, and at times it's hard for him to back off, but that it's the best thing to do. I do understand that to some extent, but right now, the situation we're in, if people weren't calling him out, how many folks that are sitting home for the first time watching this would really understand what's going on?
Nobody. Nobody would, and I disagree with that argument, because you don't allow a bully to have his way. Okay, you don't. If this is if this clown is deciding he's going to pick a fight with the media, he's picking a fight with the media because that's who he perceives as being the weakest. And to a large extent, he's right, because they still have a standard to follow where he can pretty much set a standard. So, in a way, and as far as his perception is concerned, he's right. They are the weakest link in this whole thing. But you look at how he goes after the media, and you see how they respond to him. And then you look at how the media responds to Joe Biden, especially like we said, like we saw this morning. And that media pushback is what shows the person the person's true colors. So I disagree with that at all. You don't allow him to talk and then retroactively decide to tell everybody where he's wrong, because you're just giving him carte blanche to do whatever he wants. All you're doing constantly is playing catch up. And to take it another step further, I don't see how that's being the fourth pillar. I really don't.
Lou?
I was trying to shut off. That's me making the noises. My kids are texting and I got it on the phone. That's what you're hearing. Just trying to get the note to the notifications, but it's a pain in the neck with everything turned on.
Right, we'll put up with it.
But it's just frustrating the way the media is, but I don't know what to think half the time anymore. How do they're going to have to just get on message, get through this, and get on with it. Because I don't believe there is anything there, just from watching Joe's mannerisms, compared to Mika's. And I just think the sooner that somebody goes in those archives and says, hey, there's nothing here, then get going. Luckily, it's only May 1st.
Yeah, that's the one upside, right? Well, let me ask both of you. Let me ask both of you guys this question. Do you think that this interview helped or hurt Biden? I'm not talking about what you're going to see on Fox Entertainment, because he's guilty of sin just by breathing on Fox Entertainment. But in the real world, do you think that this helped him or hurt him? We'll start with Lou.
You know what? Initially, it could have been a slight down, but I don't really think it's going to hold, just because there is so much doubt out there and it's innuendo. There's nothing solid on this. Until they could come up with whether she actually filed a complaint or not, and with her changing stories, I can't see it holding. And the only drawback on that too is this is a like we discussed yesterday, a Hillary email repeat.
Frank?
For the long term.
I mean, my initial response was, and I wavered a little bit throughout the entire video, but I would say that the first response I had was I liked his demeanor. I liked his approach to it. I thought he was very respectful, not only of and I talked about this earlier, not only of the questioner, but of the accuser. And I'll tell you a very quick side story. One of my most difficult cases I ever had as an attorney was a criminal case where somebody came to me and said, I want you to represent, and I won't even say what the person was to the other person, because I don't want to identify them, even though it was a public trial and you could look it up. But represent this person who's a friend of mine, or maybe somebody else, a relative of mine, not mine, but the person who came to me. And they said they were facing 40 years in jail and a lifetime of reporting because of an accusation that was made against them on 3 separate occasions. And when I went through that trial, the one thing I made sure that I did was not to beat up the accuser, not to ever make that accuser look bad in front of the jury. And the jury walked out of that, and I had a former chief of police as one of my jurors. And the first thing he said to me when he came out was, what the hell are you thinking letting me stay on this jury? And I said, because I know you know the law, and I know you know what investigations mean and how to investigate a case. And you would see through the BS of this false story that was being pushed by an overzealous prosecutor and this overzealous police, these overzealous police who wanted to attack this person. And I knew you'd see that. And that's one of the things I think we see here is there's probably motive, but Joe didn't talk about the motive, right? Today he said, I'm not going to get into the motive. And that was good. So the second thing this person said to me is, and other jurors followed, and there were a lot of elderly jurors on this jury. They said, thank you so much for never attacking that. And that we'll say accuser. Okay.
That person.
Never that accuser. Yep. And I said, I appreciate you telling me that. That was definitely something I wanted to stay on point with. And we won the case. And I believe that's a big reason why. And I think that's, to me, it sticks out that he never attacked Mika and he never attacked the accuser. All he said was, this is not true. Unequivocally, this is not true. I'm ready for an investigation. I'm ready for you to look into things. So I think his demeanor will play well. The one piece that I don't like, and look, I don't have all the information. I'm not privy to everything, but I've already alluded to it. I wish he would have just said, just like Trump does, in a sense, look, when my audit's done with the taxes, you can have them. Okay. When they say at the University of Delaware and the federal government says you can have those archives, you can have them. I'm not standing in the way. That's what I wish he would have said about that. That's all. And I don't know what effect that'll have long term, but to me, that's the one thing I wish he would have said.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, looking back at how he handled it, obviously, you could look back and say, well, he should have said this or he should have said that or whatnot. But overall, and we've said we've said this before. He if there's anybody out there who hasn't made up their mind who to vote for, and it's possible that there's a few. I mean, there really is. It's possible that there are some people who just still aren't sure. I don't think there's many, but there are some. I think that the way he handled this shines him in a more positive light. And what I mean by that is if you're somebody who thinks that he's guilty simply because he's being accused, then I don't think that the you're going to be as harsh on him because of his demeanor, because of how he answered. And if you're somebody who sits there and says, well, let's make sure we see everything before we pass judgment, I want to see the whole thing, that I think you're looking at him at this point and you're kind of giving him the benefit of the doubt, simply again because of how he handled himself. And I think that how he behaved really kind of helps his chances of people voting for him, because they're looking at somebody who was composed, who seemed honest, who seemed sincere. And in their minds, they have to be contrasting this to what we have now.
I would think
so. Or am I
so.
just being a little too superficial?
No, I would think so. I think that I think there's always going to be that 35% of Trump people who are going to say, yeah, look, he couldn't answer why, why this is different from the Kavanaugh hearings. And now he learned his lesson. Mika really showed him why he should have learned his lesson from that Kavanaugh hearing to now, because anybody can step forward and say whatever they want. They should be believed. Those 35% of people are never going to change their mind. There's, 40% of the Democrats who are going to say, this is 27 years old. There's 2 terms of him being vice president. It never came out then. It's garbage. And then you've got the other 15%, or so, 25% of people or so that are going to make up their mind. And those people, I think, are going to look at that demeanor in a big way. I really think that's going to be a deciding factor. Now, let's say this, demeanor goes so far. Let's say they come out and there's a record of an accusation in the National Archives, and the accusation is detailed and it talks exactly about what she's saying now. I don't think that, whatever, but if it says those kind of things, then things start to lean a different way, and you have to look at the evidence. But as of right now, the snapshot we see, that demeanor means a lot.
Well, yeah, he's a liar then, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then all bets are off.
Right.
But I mean, as we stand right now, if you were on the fence or undecided right now or this morning, and you saw that interview, you think it sways you to, hey, maybe this guy's a little better than I thought, or I guess that's my question. Immediately, do you think that this shone, cast a better light on him than he would have had maybe even a day ago?
You know what? I think you mentioned this yesterday, Patsy. Don't you think in 2008 that Obama's team went through the Senate archives for anything like that?
Absolutely.
And I would
Absolutely
think Joe's demeanor to me says, go ahead and look, without coming right out and saying you're not going to find a fucking thing.
Yeah. Yeah. He dared them without daring them, basically. Yeah. I was very impressed with how he handled this whole thing. And you're right, Frank. He slipped up here and there. But overall, and don't forget, he was grilled. He was absolutely grilled. And I'm watching this, and I'm saying things to my monitor. I mean, guys, what the fuck is wrong with you? I mean, I was going off, and she wasn't even attacking me. Mm-hmm. And that was the one thing I got out of it, is that was not as much an interview as it was an attack, and I thought he navigated through it absolutely brilliantly.
Why didn't she Why didn't she let that answer go after one time instead of 5?
Yeah, or 2 or 3.
Yeah, the University of Delaware, and you know what? She's been in this business long enough to know that anything he talked about to Putin or the Prime Minister of England at the time or whatever knows that they're not going to let that out while he's running for president, or they're going to wait a few years after he's done, even in case of national security, number one. You can't let me and you go down there and look through 18,000 files or whatever there are.
Yeah, and the context,
I think that
context in those things is important, and that's the thing that he did hit on a little bit, and that's an important thing. But again, you've got an interview that's going to be chopped up and beat up by Fox News and other conservative outlets, and they're gonna pull those little pieces out of there and say, oh, he said he talked to Putin. He said he talked to this person, and he doesn't want you to hear about it. Why doesn't he want you to hear about it? What kind of deals are they cutting? What kind of deals are they getting ready to cut? Is this about the uranium or whatever that we sent over? Is this what's this about? So they're going to cut those up and chop them up. But the big picture context of what he said was exactly what you guys are saying. And I thought he did a fine job, overall. I'm nitpicking about the issue of saying, look, if you want to go look at those things and the national government says, the government and the University of Delaware says you're allowed to, fine. That's my only nitpick, because I think overall, under the circumstances, he handled it great. And, we're going to see the test of time will be there. We've got 5 months to find out if there's anything there. If they fixate on this, like my guess was 2 or 3 days ago, they're going to try to drip with different information. Remember, we talked about that. And that they'll drip to try to make you feel bad about voting for this guy. It'll be a different story, once every couple of weeks. But if this is what they fixate on, I think I'm guessing they're probably barking up a wrong tree here.
Yeah, but I think you're absolutely dead spot on with how they're going to attack him. Just death by 1,000 cuts. I really think you're dead on with that. And as far as chopping up his interview and all that, well, that's Fox Entertainment. They were going to do that anyhow, regardless of what he said. But he did today. Just made their editors have to work a little bit harder. But not to switch topics on us abruptly, but I am switching topics on this. Washington Post 10 minutes ago. That's why I was looking at my phone so you can see it. Washington Post 10 minutes ago. White House blocks Fauci from testifying before House panel, committee spokesman says. Read you the first couple paragraphs. This again is coming from the Washington Post. Erica Werner and Mike DeBonis. Well, you guys can see. The White House is blocking Anthony S. Fauci from testifying before a House subcommittee investigating the coronavirus outbreak and response. The panel spokesman said today. Evan Hollander, spokesman for the House Appropriations Committee, said that the panel has sought Fauci's testimony for a hearing next week, but that Trump's administration officials denied the request. The committee was told by the administration officials that the denial came from the White House. Then they go on to talk about Fauci's credentials and whatnot. A White House spokesman had no immediate response when asked about the committee appearance next week. A spokeswoman for Fauci did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The subcommittee will instead hear from Thomas Frieden, who led the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention during the Obama administration. The panel could potentially seek to hear from other wellness people as well. Before what do you guys think of that? Why would they want to hide Fauci's testimony about the outbreak? Do you think it has anything to do with Trump this morning or last night saying that he's pretty sure it came from a lab in China and it was intentional? You guys did hear that shit, didn't you?
Well, he's been saying things like that, and I don't know whether you saw the little blurb where the CIA says it come from a stinking animal, not from a lab. They already have denied the beginnings of it. He's just grasping at straws, trying to put the blame somewhere. And I've already heard it. How many different things have you heard? My God, the Fox News machine there with, if somebody dies from COVID-19, the hospital's marking it whether they die from it or not because they get more money from the government for saying it was. So where are they pulling this out of? Well,
I don't know.
We kind of know, but
the best one I heard was 5G, but
so I'm thinking Fauci's doing is corroborating and explaining the general knowledge that we know that most, the Fox News watchers don't. When it started, when they blew it, and that's all he was going to say is, Trump knew this in December. He was urged to take care of it, and him and Kushner said no. That's what they don't want out in the public record.
Frank?
Well, let me throw this out to you. First of all, I agree with you, Lou, and Patsy, to answer your question. I'm unsure as to his motives, other than I would just say a big picture idea that Fauci is prone to telling the truth and prone to answering questions honestly, and doesn't seem to be, easily muzzled. So I think that's a fear on the part of the administration, that they just don't want to let somebody go in there and testify that would be willing to just tell the truth carte blanche. So I think that's one reason. It could be that he's trying to blame this. I think you guys touched on this earlier in the week, maybe Lou specifically, about how his advisors, Trump's advisors, are telling him to start, blaming China and to start attacking China on this, because that's the path that he needs to take to pivot around his own blame for, the delayed response. But I just want to throw this out there. And if you want to get into conspiracy theories and thoughts about where this disease originated, think about this. This is a CDC release. I'm just looking at the CDC themselves, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention press release from October 28th, 2019. October 28th, 2019. As of October 22nd, 2019, 34 deaths in patients with e-cigarette or vaping product use associated lung injury have been reported to the CDC. Of the 29 deaths, these people that had supposed vaping injuries, 59% were men. The median age was 45 years. Before this, listen, vaping was around 10 years ago. You could go to 7-Eleven and pick up a vaping pen and put the flavored nicotine in there, or the ones that were the anti-nicotine to try to get away from smoking. Been around forever. All of a sudden we had this spike in people dying from vaping, and they were saying, oh, some of it contained THC, some of it contained nicotine. Who's died from smoking marijuana? The fuck out of here. It's not, I'm telling you right now, I bet you $1 to a donut, that was COVID right there. The other thing is, go look up, I'm not going to look it up right now, how many people died in the Dominican from lung-related issues. They didn't know what the hell it was from. Why are these people dying in the Dominican last year? A dozen of them or so from lung-related issues. Almost all of them had respiratory issues. Okay. I don't believe this started in China. If you want to go to conspiracy theories, I think it was already here and they just didn't know it yet. They didn't diagnose it yet. I can't prove it, but why are all these respiratory illnesses killing people in spiking numbers around tainted alcohol, which was never proven in the Dominican, and THC and nicotine, which has never killed anybody in the United States?
Frank, you make some good points. I would not be surprised if we eventually find out that COVID-19's been around a lot longer than originally thought. I don't doubt that for a second. I'll do you one better. I think that I would not be surprised if we found out that it's been here in the U.S. a lot longer than we think. You know, that vaping thing is a great example. It's an absolutely great example, and I'll be honest, I never put them together, but it makes all the sense in the world. Well,
Yeah, you know what? Now that he brings that up, they never could figure out what was killing those people. And you're right. I knew people that have been vaping for years trying to get off of cigarettes. You know, and you're right. THC. I mean, give me a break. I don't know of a single person that ever OD'd on marijuana. I mean, they've tried, but it doesn't happen. Maybe on the munchies afterwards. You know.
The worst part is the worst thing that happens is they gain 5 pounds.
They gain 5 pounds. Yeah, I mean.
But it is fun. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Frank.
No, I was just going to say, I do find it weird that they're bringing back Friedman or whatever his name is, that was an Obama era doctor, to go testify to the Congress, which nobody's heard from him for a while. He hasn't been in the spotlight. I don't doubt his veracity or his truth telling or his knowledge, but he's not been the guy on the front lines as far as this goes. So it's just weird. It's just really weird.
Yeah, that I did not think was going to be their second choice. I would have thought they'd have found. Well, it couldn't have been what's her name? The other doctor, not Fauci, who's the female. Burke, yeah. You know, it obviously couldn't be her, because if they were going to block Fauci, they were sure as fuck going to block her too. But you're right, Frank. I would have thought it would have been somebody that has a little bit more firsthand knowledge of the, and that's not to doubt this person's credentials or his or anything like that. I'm not trying to say that, but he's not exactly very active in this fight as far as we know. He very well could be. I mean, he might be a silent partner in all this, right? And, right. But at this point, it's almost like Bill Gates has more credibility about this than this guy does, and that's simply because, hell, fuck, he was just on CNN last night. Gates with they had a roundtable or a town hall. They call them town halls, virtual town halls. Him and Sanjay Gupta and I forgot who the host was. It wasn't. It was during Cuomo's time, but it wasn't Cuomo who was doing it. Uh, if it figures not just to bring it up to on go off on a tangent here. Remember the other day I started telling you guys what a big Anderson Cooper fan I am, and like I'm watching his shit all the time now. Well, it turns out he has a baby now, and he's going to be off for a while, so I can't fucking watch him anymore.
That's why he wasn't on last night.
That's why he wasn't on. That's why what's her name? That's why what's her name? Aaron Burnett's been on in his time slot, right? Because he's off with the baby. He posted a thing on Instagram, beautiful baby. But it was like I just started watching you. What the fuck? But to get back to that point, I like I said, I'm not doubt this guy's credibility or his credentials, but it would seem to me that unless this guy knows things about this stuff that we don't know he knows, I would have thought that somebody like Gates would have been a better choice for that. Frank, by the way, just before I because I do want you to answer, but and I understand it might be an exercise in futility, so just pacify me. But couldn't that committee just subpoena Fauci?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, but they probably don't want to cause him problems. They, look, he's got, hopefully they're thinking along these lines. But yeah, they could. But I hopefully they're thinking along the lines of, look, he's got his hands full trying to pacify the big orange baby and still do the job he's got to do. So let's leave him alone. Yeah,
you're probably right. And like I said, even if he wasn't, if they're if the administration's blocking him, by the time they actually get this thing through a court and get him to testify, it'll be shit. It could be 2021. Yeah, it's just not worth the effort. But they could. I mean, technically they could if they wanted to. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad they're kind of taking the high road on this too. Because the next thing we need is for Barr to turn this into a sideshow.
Oh, he will.
Yeah.
That could be another topic altogether for a night.
Yeah, and it would last far longer than the hour that we allocate for our time here. One more thing before we go. We'll just touch on it very briefly. This is the one more thing I said after the one more thing I said last time. What do you guys your thoughts on the shit going on in Michigan? I had no idea it was so easy to fight a virus with a AR-15. I'd have bought one a long time ago.
You know what? I think what you're seeing there is that's the reason we need to get Trump out of here. To me, they're today's brown shirts and nothing more. Why they haven't been turned out of that Capitol with a couple canisters of tear gas, I have no idea. I mean, if you're an authority there, to sergeant at arms, I would make up an excuse to drop a tear gas canister in there to get him out of the building, whether it was true or not, just for a point being made. I just, I just don't know what to think. I do know what to think, but I hate to think it.
Well, it's very possible that they're just trying to let these people have their say and then let them go home. I mean, I've worked just as low level as a security person for so long that, yeah, it would be really easy to make something up to tear gas them. I mean, fuck, you could do that without even having to show up to the site. Do you think that they are? Do you think they're just looking for an excuse, or do you think they are a lot like we talked about before, as we ended last night, where they don't realize the privilege that they have, and they're doing this whole big show over being nothing but inconvenienced? Because if they can afford to show up there and afford to have their guns and have all this and all of that, they're not hurting for cash.
There are a few people out there that are very extreme. I guess I want to answer the one question that you guys already talked and answered a little bit first, though. I think that, authorities don't want to descend into a Ruby Ridge situation or a Waco, Texas situation, if you recall those days, right? And that's one thing. The other thing is the other side of this, those guys in Michigan, they may be itching for their opportunity to kind of be this, not martyr, but to be able to go out and pull triggers and say they started the second American Revolution. There are a few people out there, the fringes, that really think that this is going to be the next Civil War. I mean, I'm not so sure we're not really in a civil war, not in the sense of a military civil war, but we're so divided. I mean, we're so damn divided. Ideologically, we're in a war. So, but they're itching for a fight, and they go out there and see how far they can push it. And yeah, they're the brown shirts, and they probably feel like they got brothers in arms in the police forces and in the military. They think that those folks are going to join in with them, and they think that all the Republicans that are registered Republicans across the country have weapons and that they're the only ones that have weapons. They just have this fantasy idea of that. So I'm not saying that the majority of Republicans think that way, and I'm not saying the majority of people that are, I guess, wanting to get out of their house are thinking that way, but there are a small group of them who are kind of itching for that fight.
Yeah, if they think they have those brothers in arms in those places you mentioned, boy, are they in for a shock. Trust me, they're in for a shock. You know. Well, guys, what do you think we stick a fork in this thing?
Frank, you see that nice shot of those militiamen on the porch with their weapons.
Yeah, you know what? I think I'm just going to let that stay in our Discord group. If everybody wants to see it, you know, get into our Discord group, and we'll be more than happy to let you see what it is. I'm definitely not putting that up here on this. There's no way. I mean, we do have it set as an adult audience, but I mean, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
And just to tie up a loose end, the reporter that I was talking about saying don't get into a fight with Trump is John Carl from ABC. So maybe we can share that next week as far as the article. I think I sent it to you on Discord, Patsy. So
yeah,
let's hold it till Monday.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, guys, let's call this. Oh hell, we're gonna call it a week, aren't we?
Yes,
Yeah, don't forget, folks. Nothing tomorrow. 2:00 Sunday for our pod recording for mastering the news. Obviously, the whole gang is welcome to be there. Hopefully, you know, somebody can show up. Master Grant will be on. Dr. Di may be joining us. I don't know. I haven't really talked to her about it yet. But obviously, you know, the whole gang is always privy to jumping on and being a part of this. If you guys like what you see, like what you hear, please don't forget to tip us. And don't tell us to plant our corn early. We're from Western PA. We know that. And if you like what you see or hear, please consider supporting us on Patreon. You can do so for as little as $1 a month. So for my co-hosts and myself, I just want to thank everybody again for joining us, and we will see you guys. We'll see you guys Monday. So until then, goodbye. Take care, and God bless. We'll see you guys tomorrow or Monday. Bye bye.